Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started since it is 2. So I'm going to hand over the mic now to Eric, who's going to be our presenter today. So take it away there, Eric.
Thanks, Claire. So hello everybody. Alright, so we'll get started. Today's all about the tool deployment or contribution process. So the biggest question we get asked is Hubzero has this tool thing. So why would I deploy my tool on a hub versus some other mechanism? Well, first thing is that everything we do from a user perspective on the hub is web-based. So when you deploy your tool, it is directly on the web. And I'll show you a quick demo here of what that looks like. But more importantly, it's code agnostic, which means that any coding language that you know, pretty much, if you wanted to do something in R, Python, Java, even Bash if you wanted to, that you can write in the coding language of your choice, build a GUI, and write your simulation tool and then deploy it on the web. So what that does is that really lowers the barrier where the end user doesn't have to install anything on their machine. All they have to do is access the website and they can run your tool right there. Also publish a tool on the web. It's also it's a publishing mechanism. So that means it's out there for the world to find. There's a shareable link that you can pass around. There's nothing else you have to do, again, for installing or any some of the highly technical work that could be involved. So I'll show you a quick demo. This is one of our hubs called My Geo Hub. And this is the resource tools page. So from their menu structure, you go to resources and then tools, and you'll find something similar on other hubs. You get to this page. You have a few different categories and a good list of tools. We'll choose this one though. So I'll choose the title here for Geospatial Modeler. And this is what a tool page looks like. This is available publicly, but you will need an account to log in to actually run the tool. There's an abstract, there's references, all kinds of different options. We won't go through all of them today, but there's supporting documents. You can have questions and answers, reviews, usage reports, and more importantly, different versions. So the code that you deploy here is versioned. So as you move through time and improve your tool, things are, a history is tracked. So to run this tool, I'm going to click the large black button here that says Launch Tool, and give it a second, and it pops up in your web browser. I personally don't know how this tool works because I didn't build it, but you can see it has something to do with algorithms, models, different utility scripts. You see a file structure that you'd normally expect for different tools or different applications. You can import data, export data. There's algorithm toolbox. So this, inside this frame here, that is really the tool that you're building. And the real choice is really yours. This is just one example. Okay. Yeah. So this is from the perspective of the end user, the person that's using the tool. I imagine you're here because you might have an idea of, hey, I want to build a tool. How do I do that? What's the first thing I need to think about? How do I build something like this Geospatial Modeler tool? First thing to think about is what coding language are you thinking about? Or what tools do you need to build that? So let's say you're going to write it in Python. Well, what packages do you need? Are you involving Python and R? So start to think about, as a tool developer, what things you may need. How would the GUI interface look? Okay. Some pieces to note here, I'll back up a little bit, about how a tool is formed. Like I said, there's the code here in the middle, but if you look around the frame, you have this title bar, you have a terminate and a keep for later button. Those are important, and I'll show you why. If I click on keep for later, within the hub, I'm directed to my dashboard. Okay. From there, I'm looking for, sorry, I'm skipping a little bit on the dashboard. I won't do a full tour. But you can see there's a lot of options and there's a lot of modules here that are specific to groups, tools, and projects, etc. What I'm looking for is my sessions, which is down here. You can see I kept that tool session for later. So that's important, is that when you start a tool, it can be hidden in the background for later. So that's what I've done with this one. So say you run a simulation or you're working on something, that's listed here as well. And you can also see I have a workspace, but we'll get that later. If I want to reopen that tool session, I just click on Open. And I'm back where I started, even with the menu here that I happen to leave open here. So it's very flexible. It's also worth noting that this tool session, you'll hear me use that term over and over again. That's important, that each tool runs in its own session. You're not exactly on the host there. Okay. All right, so back to, hey, I'm a tool developer. What do I need to know? So first thing, like I said, is a coding language. What's the goal of the tool? Possibly what the GUIs look like. What's your end goal in the simulation? Is it to generate a CSV file? Is it to generate a map? That's possible as well. Okay. It could be generating a plot. So think about those things, because that influences what tools you may need. Okay. Another thing to think about is different restrictions. The execution of your tool, is that restricted in any way? Is it only for people in the US? Is it restricted by just your research group, for instance? Or is it completely public for anybody with an account to use? To start the process, I'll show you this graphic. So this page, and we can show you this later, there's a lot of documentation on how to deploy tools. This one's on Hubzero. We call this the contrib tool process. So as a developer, first thing the first thing you're going to need to do is fill out a contribution form, and that's here. Okay. So when completing that form, you're registering a tool. Okay. The biggest thing right now, we'll go through this in more detail in a few minutes, is to know that you, as a tool developer, and there's a tool administrator, and that's somebody on the Hub team, that you're delivering the code that'll get passed to the Hub administrator and then back and forth until the tool is eventually published. Okay.
So just kind of like jumping in right where Eric is, going over a few things too. We've kind of covered what is the user, who is the user, by showing that first example of the tool session we were looking at with the geospatial tool. We could see that's the viewpoint of the user. That's their use case. They actually come to the hub to use whatever service you've provided in the form of a tool. And then we have our tool developer, who's the one behind developing the code and actually submitting newer code that might fix any updates to this specific tool. And they're the one that's actually managing it. And we also covered a little bit the tool administrator. So these guys are kind of like our magical unicorns. You never really hear from them unless you are a tool developer who is trying to submit a tool on a supported hub, or if you are on your own hub, for example, you would then become the tool administrator. These guys are the ones that are curating code, making sure that everything is sound, ready to go, and also they're the ones that help publish the tool in the end. So they actually kind of handle more of the management at a large scale, and so they can see all the tools that are available on the site and actually manage them. This permission, though, for managing tools is always restricted to just tool administrators, especially if you're supported Hubzero Hub, just because they keep everything in-house, and they have their own process, and it meets Hubzero's requirements as well on how tools are published on supported hubs. So those are the three groups of individuals we're working with, and I know Eric's about to jump in on the actual submission side. So this is where the tool developer actually comes into play. So they've actually come with code in hand, ready to publish this tool on a hub, and we're going to use my GeoHub as an example so we can roll through this process. So handing it back over to Eric.
Okay. So the first step, is to say, hey, I want to submit a resource, I want to submit a tool. Okay. So here we are at the My GeoHub resources page. You'll find that by going to the main menu and clicking on resources. And what you're looking for is the submit a resource button. You'll find something similar on other hubs as well. So when you click on that, you're presented with a page that says resources new. You're like, okay, that's good. And it gives you an idea of what types, what can I contribute. And there's many different resource types, but we're going to focus on what just tools. So let's click on Get Started. And then the next page that you're presented with is a page to choose, okay, which type of resource are you going to create? And again, we're going to choose Tools. So now we're on the Create a New Tool page. And I'm going to go through each one, explain what each one means a little bit, because these are very specific to tools. Tool name. This one is, like the example here, it's a short name. It's a Linux name or the system name of your tool. It's intended to be all lowercase and, again, very short. Title can be much longer. It can be, like the example here, quantum.lab. I'll fill one in here. Let's say that's one. We'll just call it quantum dot. Version starts at 1.0. You can name it to something different, but I usually recommend to leave the default at 1.0 because it is your first version. At a glance is a short one-line tagline of your tool. That's something that people will read the title and see this directly under your title. So obviously not that, but
helps bring users to the tool and actually be intrigued with what cool stuff might entail.
Yes, but within one sentence. Okay. Suggested screen size, you can adjust that here, but that can be easily changed at a later date as well. Okay, access. This is what I mentioned before briefly. Tool access, can anyone run the tool? Is it restricted to a group, or is it restricted to U.S. nations only, or there's a couple other options here. For the most part, we see a lot of tools are accessible to everyone, except in cases that maybe, okay, it's just only for new people. Is a good example of that. Okay, source code access and project area access go together. Source code access level is either open source or closed source, and that's something to think about as a whole as far as you build your tool. You may start out with it being closed source because you're not really sure if you want it to be accessible to share your source code with the world, and then that's up to you. This question actually comes up a couple times during this process. For now, for the source code access here, I usually recommend it to be set to closed source, as well as a project area. The project area is a software that we use called Track and SVN, and what the project area primarily is a way to browse through your code on the web. You can't really make changes there, but you can definitely view it. So again, that's that access level. Is it completely open to the public? People can download and view your code, or is it restricted only to the development team? Now, how do you identify the development team? It's in this space here. So here's my username. This is a commonly delivered list that you can enter here of everybody's username that's on your development team.
So by also giving users, or actually choosing who your development team is, by adding their usernames in that section, you're also going to be adding them to the project. And then further down the line, they will also be notified whenever any changes happen to the to the tool. If maybe it's been submitted back from the tool administrator, everyone will be alerted. So it's a key thing to keep in mind who wants to be alerted, who needs to be alerted. So then that way they can all be a part of this team with you.
And the team should definitely work together collaboratively. Everybody on the team will have access to the source code and be able to edit that. As I mentioned, we do use SVN as our code repository to track all changes. Details on that would be in a different webinar. That's more at the coding lower level. But that does start the conversation of what kind of environment am I programming in? What tools does the hub provide for me? And one of them is SVN. In fact, it's required. And there's also a few other files that are required. That'll probably be in another webinar, but I'll show you here in the next page kind of what that is. I can give you a little bit of taste of it at least. So there is a folder structure, a default folder structure that's checked out of SVN, includes a number of files and a number of folders that are required, like your bin directory, a source directory. A make file is required. And in case you don't know what that is, a make file is just a script that tells us how to install it. Coding programs can be very complicated, and I may not know how to compile it and install it on your system, so those are instructions on how to do that. The hubs currently use Debian Wheezy or Debian 7 Wheezy in the tool session, so that's the environment where your code will need to run. We also have something called an invoke script. That script is what tells the hub to invoke your tool. So we need to know what your executable is, for instance. And your invoke script is how you tell us, hey, run this executable, and then everything else will load beyond that. As far as your environment, like I said, Debian 7 Wheezy, which means you have those packages that are in Debian 7's repository available to you. It could be different versions of R, it could be RStudio, any number of things that are there in that repository. So when you think about building your project, think about what's available there. If you happen to notice when you're working on your tool in your workspace, and I'll describe what the workspace is here in a minute, you need a package installed, or there's some library you need installed. Please submit a support ticket, and we'll work on getting that installed for you. So, go back to the page here. Once you filled out this registration page, everything's good.
So I was teasing Eric. He missed a few required fields here.
Yes.
So then if he was to click register tool, it would flag him and at least alert him. So that is one of the nice things about having this form. If it is required, we will let you know so you don't miss out on that important information.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay. So I went through this form earlier to set up the demo, and so once you click the register tool button, you already know that page. You're presented with this tool, with this page. And I'll jump to the process here, and I'll bounce back and forth a little bit between the page that I'm currently demoing and this process here. So as a tool developer, you fill out the contribution form, and then this step is now automated, and we're in the created state. So you can see here, it's in the created state. So really, when you're developing a tool, you're really looking for what state is the tool deployment process in. So in created, okay, great. So what's next? The instructions for that are generally here. on the right-hand side. You have your tool information and then some buttons for your developer tool buttons here to do stuff. But if you're looking for what's next, it's here on the right. There's some information in this wiki page, but again, that's another webinar. Rapture is also another option to build a GUI. We typically see a lot of Rapture tools, a lot of Java-based tools, and starting to see more Python-based GUI platforms as well. And there are also instructions on how to check out your code from SVN. And I'll briefly show you what that initial command is. Okay. Which I will do right now. So, as we saw in this tool session frame here, there's another tool that we call Workspace, and it looks like this. Okay. On my GeoHub, that's a special request for access. This is essentially a Linux desktop with a terminal, and you can see there's other editors, there's other math and science packages, other graphics packages. For GIMP's a good example because that's the open source equivalent to Photoshop. That's available here, and a bunch of other options. But this is really your work area to develop your tool. Okay, and just a little bit more about the workspace is it is essentially the same environment that you're working in, that your tool will run in when it's executed. So this is a Debian 7 workspace. All the packages are there that need to be. So it is really the best place to work on your tool and build your tool. So the first step after getting to this status page is, okay, you read through these instructions, but you're like, let's say you have your code already prepared. It's a project from your previous semester or something like that. And you see this button here, it's like, okay, my code is submitted, working, and ready to be installed. How do I get my code there? The first thing you need to do is do an SVN checkout. That checks out the initial skeleton from the hub. That'll get you your directory structure, your example invoke script, your example makefile, and the command looks like this. Okay. So first, the reason for me showing you this is all done on the terminal. There's no, so as a tool developer, you have to be familiar with the Linux terminal. Then once you run that command, it will create a directory in your home directory, is usually where you start out here. You can see that E2048. I'll go into that directory and do a list, and you'll see there's the folder structure. You have a bin directory, a data directory, examples, a middleware, Rapture, and a few others, and in Aaron for one. I'll put that there. Okay, from there, and this kind of gets into the other webinar, but at least this gives you an idea of your source code goes in the source directory, your executables go in the bin directory, your invoke script is in the middleware directory, for instance. Okay. All right, so let's say I've got my code all uploaded, and I do an SVN commit, and I submit everything. Great, now everything's connected into, or committed into SVN. Now I go ahead and click this button. My code is committed and ready to be installed. And you'll see the page will change. Well, what's next? At this point, you are in the uploaded state. You can see it's on the right side here of this chart, which means it's waiting on a tool administrator to install it. Okay, and I'll go do that briefly. I've set this up ahead of time. So yeah, this is what's next. You're essentially waiting on your tool admin to do that. So what may happen is that the tool administrator may say, hey, we may make this tweak to your code or the makefile or something. And that begins that communication back and forth between the tool developer and the tool administrator. How do you communicate? Best way to communicate is through this message box. This will email all the tool administrators on the hub and everybody listed in the development team. Okay. So that's this process here, where I go from the uploaded to the installed state, back and forth between updated. Once everything is basically running okay, it'll go into the approved state. But let me just refresh my page here. You can see the tool is now in the forgot one option. Gotta make sure I click the right buttons on the other end.
And just to recap too, when Eric is going into kind of this gray area for us, he's actually one of our mysterious tool administrators for several of our hubs, so he can actually have those access, or the access to the management buttons to make sure that, like the process that he's describing right now, to show when it's uploaded and then when it goes to the administrator to make sure that the code is installed. He's able to do all of that with the fly of a handle. And just kind of going back as we're waiting on him to kind of see what's going on. Just to recap about the message button, if you want to see your entire history of communication, there's the history button, which is the first one. You can kind of see, for example, on Eric's, he's able to actually see when it was created. It looks similar to a support ticket if you've ever worked with support before, but it's outside of the normal support ticket realm. This is in its own area, so we can actually see the documented history of when edits were made, who made those edits and changes. So it's a great way to kind of track what not only your team members are doing, but what the tool administrators are doing, so to kind of keep track of what's going on your tool. So, and then back to what Eric said earlier, if you ever do run into any issues, maybe a package needs to be installed, you would need to use the hub support system that is outside of the tool itself to make that request, because it's not only just affiliated with your tool, it's something that would affect all tools at large. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, so now that I got the right page to load, you can see that the tool is now in an installed state. This gives you, the tool developer, a chance to launch the tool. It's been installed to see, is it working properly? So I'm going to click the Launch Tool button, and it loads. This happens to be a game, it's in a web browser, but it could be any tool, any media software that you build. So great, let's say I think this looks great, I'm ready to publish. I'll click Terminate here, and then go back to the tool status page. And you can see here what's next. Please test your tool, test your application. There's an option to create this page. As we saw with the published tool at the very beginning, there was a good amount of information, some description there. That's what create this page does. And I'll get to that here in just a second. But let's say the tool developer, I said, okay, great, the tool's running well, and I'm ready to move on. So you can see the remaining steps here below. Register your tool, upload your source code, make the page. So you want to create the page. Stop a little bit. And for those of you that are familiar with creating other types of resources, this should look pretty similar. Here's at a glance, and the title that I entered on the registration page. I'll add something to the abstract because it's required.
Yep, and as Eric kind of walks through and filling out this form, which is just like a regular resource form, because at this point you really are building the resource that's affiliated with your tool. So you want to dump as much information as possible here, especially steps on how to run the tool itself, because as we know, some tools can be pretty complicated and need actual instructions and steps on how to complete the process to either get your data all the way compiled at the end. But just like a resource tool, you have contributors. So this can be your entire team. Your entire team will be automatically shown up as authors of this resource.
Yes, so the development team that you entered in the registration page shows up here as an author automatically. You can add other people as needed.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you maybe had some individuals help you maybe with that documentation, you would kind of highlight their help there as either a submitter or an author, depending on what role they played in developing this tool. Again, adding supporting documents, this is when you would want to add your instructions on how to use the tool. And then at the bottom of this screen, you will also see screenshots. This will actually create a carousel that shows all the different steps maybe for viewing the tool. So if you have multiple viewpoints in your GUI as a user is using your tool throughout several steps maybe, or maybe you just want to show some examples of data being run in a tool. Maybe for Eric's use case, if he wanted to show maybe him winning the game 2048, he could add some of those screenshots there to see and give a little bit of expectation for the user.
So typically we don't see screenshots a lot. We usually see supporting documents, which is your how-to guide, essentially, for the end user. All right, so if we go next to the next page, you can assign tags, so search can find your tool a little bit easier. And the next page is a finalization step. This will kind of give you an idea what the page looks like, and click on the Finalize button to finalize the page. You're then taken back to the tool status page, which is great, and let's say I want to move on to the next step. So the next step is to approve. So you want to say here, once your tool is tested, verified, is working properly, the tool is working properly, I approve it. This will take you through a couple more steps. The version here, and this is important to note, it's starting at 1.0. Every time you go through the approval process, you'll have to increment that version number. So yes, I want to use version 1.0.
And just to also jump to, it won't let you keep the same version number, especially if you are republishing the tool. Mm-hmm. So you'll be forced to add maybe 1.1 next time if you needed to republish.
Right. And here's the second time you're asked about open source or closed source. Real frowny face for closed source. So we really try to promote open source software. So I'll make this open source at this point. This does not open the SVN repository up for everybody to access. This is just as like a zip file of the code that we'll be able to download for the user. You're also prompted to provide a license. It could be GPL, limited GPL, or you can create your own as well. Okay. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to put this as closed source for now. And then you click Save. A slight overview of the approval steps. And then you click on the Approve This Tool button at the bottom. Now you can see that your tool status page, I keep mentioning the tool status page because that's really important to know what state the tool's in and what is up and coming. It's an approved state now, which means what's next? Well, you're waiting on your tool administrator to publish the tool.
And cue the gray screen. Again to the land of unicorns and rainbows. The magic is happening. I know probably most of you aren't getting as much of a kick out of this as I am, but hey, it's alright. I'm here for comic relief.
Okay. Oops. Just one more second here. Okay. Sorry, one more second here.
Just go to works or your previous one, Geospatial.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to share my other screen. Just one moment. And that's what sorry about the glitch there, but this is what the published state looks like in the tool status page. It says, tool information is a different color. You see the green bar, yay. What's next? Your tool's been published and now open to the public. Great. The next step would be say, hey, it's published, but I want to work on the new version. And what that looks like, so now we're in the published state here. As a tool developer, we say, okay, I'm going to work on the next version. I've worked on my code, I've updated and committed back to SVN, and then the next state would be updated. So that's what this button does. That puts you back into the updated state, and then you go back and forth with your tool administrator to get it installed, go through the approval process again, and then you're published. To run this tool, if you click on this link, you'll go to the tool page, just like we saw before. And you can also find it inside Resources, Tools. You can see Eric's demo tool is listed here as well. And if you click the black button, it works the same, just like we saw at the very beginning. Hopefully.
But eventually launching the tool, and then we would be able to actually see it and start using it as we need. So Eric so far walked us through not only what the user experience is, so actually launching the tool, but also, there we go, also the whole process of submitting a tool from a developer, tool developer standpoint, so that whole contribution process. We did kind of skim over some of the steps, specifically working with SVN, uploading code, pulling code from your maybe home directory to the hub itself. Those steps we might, based on everyone else's general agreement, disagreement, we'll ask you that here in a little bit, but if everyone's interested in actually learning about those steps, and maybe you're a little bit unfamiliar with the SVN and want to know more about it, or you would like a little bit of guidance maybe on how to interact with the workspace a little bit, we're all ears. We'd love to hear some opinion from the general crowd on what you would like to hear or learn about based on tools.
Yeah.
So, kind of opening back up.
Fine. Just one last comment is this talk was designed around this graphic of showing, the process and the handoff back and forth on how to develop a tool from beginning to end, from registration to publishing.
And you can find this documentation on hubzero.org/documentation, and you can actually navigate to the current release that you are using, and then you can go to tool managers or tool developers and find out more information if you want to skim that way.
Yep, documentation from the menu, tool developers.
And actually learn a little bit more about the tool process. Well, it covers the contribution process here as well, along with a few more steps that are available.
Yeah, you can see the invoke script that we mentioned, using workspaces, using subversion for source code control. The graphic that I've shown a few times is in this link, tool maintenance documentation for hub managers. It's right there. So you may see, the documentation is written to show both the tool admin side and the tool developer side as well.
And that's meant for a lot of, and I know supported hubs, you don't have to worry about the tool admin side if you're working with tools. But I know that anyone that's working with an open source community, that's free game for you guys to try to dive down that bunny hole and see what the process is from that point of view. So it seems like we've kind of hit the end of our at least training portion. If you have a question that you would like to ask Eric, feel free to add it in the chat. We're going to give everyone a couple minutes, see where we go question-wise. So just go ahead and chat us if you have a question. I know some of you might need to run off here in a little bit because we are almost upon the hour. But just let us know if you have any questions as we kind of twiddle our thumbs waiting for a response. This is when we need our elevator music.
Hubzero theme song maybe.
Theme song, yep. Maybe like Godzilla's raining theme song.
Maybe I can do a visual theme song. I can play my game.
We can watch Eric win.
Does anybody know this game?
It was pretty popular a little bit ago. But
anybody? No?
No.
Anybody knows the game?
Bueller. But if maybe we did a fantastic job and nobody does have any questions at this point. Oh, hey, we have a winner. So, are there any walkthroughs that document installation of various tools? Currently, you are looking at the first walkthrough that's documenting this process. We know this is kind of one of our weak points right now with our documentation, and we appreciate your interest actually coming and participating in this webinar. In the future, we are looking at building a few more tutorials, specifically with using SVN, maybe slowing down the process that we just went through, and then, like you've mentioned, just also showing different tools. We have a lot of users who are, or a lot of tool developers in our community who work with geospatial graphing. That's why we highlighted My GeoHub, which was nice enough to allow us to demo in their hub today. But they work with a lot of geomapping and actually plotting out land for everyone to interact with through the tool environment. So
Frederick, do you mean installation like the tool admin installation side, or this process throughout? Or something in addition to what we've presented here?
Would love to see walkthroughs for installing Juniper Notebook, RStudio, etc. So the various languages.
Yes, so RStudio, yes, we have installed that before. I suppose you could, submit a ticket on Hubzero, and we can give you some guidance in that. There are a couple of extra things you need to do. So for example, the installation process can be quite involved depending on how large the package is. So RStudio is easy because that can be installed from the Linux package. But if your makefile, for instance, is highly complicated, that's going to take a while. And then there's other options like, can I submit to an HPC cluster? Am I accessing external resources? Am I need to access a visualization server? So there's other more advanced things that you can do. As far as installing at a basic level, I think some of that documentation is actually out there. Yeah, let's see how I can find where we are in installed proof state. Yep, here's a Rapture Bootcamp, uploading, publishing new tools. There'll probably be some information as far as installing that in the apps directory and more technical details there. But if you have questions, please put a ticket in on Hubzero, and we'll guide you to the right documentation.
All right, and Eric, if you wouldn't mind sharing that link to the general chat group, then that way he can go ahead and grab it and look into it. I know that one of our tool administrators here at Hubzero hosts a Rapture Bootcamp every year. So if anyone's interested in attending that, we'd be more than happy to send out information maybe in our next Hubbub newsletter, so then everyone will be informed that way. So that's one of the options. And we also have a light version of the Rapture Bootcamp on Hubzero. If you go to Hubzero/courses, you can actually go ahead and take the course itself for free, no charge. We don't want your money. We want to just provide as much information as possible. But the only thing you need is a Hubzero account, and you can go ahead and access the course and start learning about the different options that are available with Rapture. Cool beans. Good to hear. Alright, so I think that we're almost up on time, but if everyone is responsive enough, I would like to ask a few questions to the general group, especially everyone that's participated this afternoon. We're looking at hosting a few more webinars in the future, and we kind of wanted to gauge the general group and see, would you like to learn more about tools? Did you find this session helpful enough? Or are you interested maybe in us delving into maybe our studio or another walkthrough that was currently mentioned just a couple minutes ago as our next tutorial? So we'll let everyone kind of add that to the chat, their general opinion, because I know that we have a few already scheduled on Hubzero, but we're looking at adding more, so any suggestions would be welcomed. And of course, if you found this session to be great, we would love to hear your response. I'm going to go ahead and send to everyone an email address that you can email us at.
And as Claire's doing that, for those of you that are still watching, I'm just going to go through a couple tools just as examples. Since our studio was mentioned, and that's actually installed on my GeoHub, so you can see it's here ready to go. Okay.
Good to know. And if you're looking at maybe working with geospatial focused tools, you're always more than welcome to join my GeoHub, start an account, and start interacting with the group there to see where you can help out. But I added just a little bit ago, the Hub Liaisons at hubzero.org is our mailing address. If you have an opinion on what tutorial you would like to see next, you can either email us there or just add it to the chat. We're also interested in learning a little bit more about your guys' field, where you're at, what background you're coming from, so then that way we can also service and kind of focus these webinars on your area of interest the best we can. So let us know. Feel free to email us or add to the chat any suggestions. I'm going to allow Eric to have any last words of wisdom. Eric, I'm putting you on the spot.
I know. And I was hoping to show a quick ad hoc demo here but I don't remember how to use the tool correctly. So, yeah,
no
trying to
worries.
find a cool one, but that's all right. Maybe this will work. No. So yeah, if just in closing, yeah, this was an overview. When you get down to the coding level, as far as how you code something, or what, am I doing this in what language? Am I going to do everything in Java? That can get pretty complicated. So I would recommend the things that I mentioned here, as far as the considerations and how you build things. That would be very helpful to get started and kind of have an idea before jumping in. And as Claire stated too, most of the hubs welcome new users. So if you find like my GeoHub or any of our other hubs and you're intrigued about what they're doing, by all means, give them a ring, shoot them an email, play around with their tools, see what they do. they'll be happy to help you.
Very well stated, Eric. So again, we appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon and listening in. Going to go ahead and sign off here. Thank you everyone for participating. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we appreciate your constant support of Hubzero and making sure that we can continue to entertain you through these webinars, and hopefully you can find some information out as we're actually walking through some of these features. One final question: yes, we are recording these webinars. We have posted them as resources on Hubzero, so if you would like to have a recap, maybe you had a quick phone call or had to use the bathroom at one point, you can go ahead and maybe catch up on what you missed. This exact webinar will hopefully be up by tomorrow morning, so you can go ahead and navigate to Hubzero and look at recent resources tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to find this recording of this webinar. So we hope everyone enjoyed it. Again, always appreciate Eric being our guest speaker, and we hope to have him back soon. So, alrighty. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.